I arrived at my daughter's wedding, and the first thing I heard was my son-in-law whispering with pure contempt. "The poor country bumpkin finally showed up, and she smells like the farm." Those words slipped from his mouth like poison, and I heard them clearly from the vestibule of the church. They had no idea that I had transferred the deed to the colonial house, where they lived, into my own name that very same week. Nor did they know they were about to find out the hard way. But wait, let me take you back to the beginning of a day that started with such high hopes and ended by revealing the most painful truth a mother can face. It was 10 in the morning when I pulled up to St. Michael's Cathedral. The sun was blazing off the white stone of the historic building, making the whole scene look like something out of a Disney movie. White and pink flowers covered every column, every step, every visible corner. Imported roses, exotic orchids, lilies that probably cost more than I made in an entire month running the farm back in the Midwest. I stepped out of the Uber carefully, smoothing down my beige dress. It was my Sunday best, the one I had bought specifically for this occasion at a department store in the city. Nothing fancy, nothing flashy, just a simple dress made of soft fabric that I found on a clearance rack. My shoes were comfortable, practical flats. My purse was small and worn, but everything was clean, pressed with care the night before, while tears of emotion rolled down my cheeks. Because this was my Olivia's wedding, my only daughter, the little girl for whom I had sacrificed absolutely everything. I walked up the steps of the cathedral, feeling my heart pounding against my ribs. 72 years of life, and I had never seen anything as extravagant as these decorations. The floral arrangements must have cost at least $20,000. The satin ribbons hanging from every pew, another $5,000. The red carpet covering the center aisle, imported specially from Europe as Olivia had bragged weeks ago, another $10,000. I knew exactly how much every single detail cost, because I had written the checks for all of it. I entered the church lobby, and the air conditioning hit me like a cold wave. The contrast with the humidity outside made me shiver slightly. Or maybe it was just nerves. I looked around for a familiar face, someone to greet me with a smile, someone to tell me where to sit or what to do. But what I found were stares, eyes scanning me from head to toe, glances that evaluated my simple dress, my sensible shoes, my gray hair pulled back in a basic bun, looks that judged, weighed, and found my presence inadequate for such a black tie event. A woman in a cream-colored suit with a pearl necklace the size of golf balls looked at me and then whispered something to her friend. Both of them giggled discreetly behind their gloved hands. A group of men in impeccable dark suits watched me pass, and one of them made a comment I didn't quite catch, but it provoked stifled laughter. I felt my cheeks burn. Not with shame, but with something deeper. A pang of pain was already beginning to settle in my chest. I walked down the side aisle looking for Olivia. I needed to see her, hug her, tell her how beautiful she would look in her wedding gown. We had spoken so little in the last few weeks. She was busy, she told me. The preparations had her exhausted, but I understood. A wedding requires time, attention, energy. I found one of the wedding planners, a young woman with an iPad in her hands and an earpiece. I asked her where I could find the bride. "And you are?" she asked with a professional but icy smile. "I am Martha, the mother of the bride." Her expression shifted subtly. Something flickered in her eyes that I couldn't interpret in that moment. She checked her iPad, swiping her finger across the screen several times. "Ah, yes, Mrs. Martha. Miss Olivia is in the bridal suite with the bridesmaids, but she has asked not to be disturbed until 11 o'clock. I just want to say hello. I am her mother." "I am sorry, ma'am. Strict orders. No one is allowed in until she authorizes it." I stood there, frozen, feeling that something was off. My own daughter didn't want to see me before her wedding? She didn't want me with her in those final moments before walking down the aisle? "You can wait in the guest lounge," the planner told me, pointing toward a side door, "or take a walk through the gardens. There is still more than an hour before the ceremony." I nodded and headed toward the gardens. I needed air. I needed to think. I needed to calm this strange sensation growing in the pit of my stomach. The cathedral gardens were spectacular. Crystal clear fountains, wrought iron benches, perfectly manicured stone paths. I sat on a bench under the shade of an old oak tree and closed my eyes for a moment. I remembered the day Olivia was born. I was 40 years old. After years of trying, She finally arrived. Perfect, pink, with strong lungs that filled the hospital room with her cry. My husband, God rest his soul, wept with joy holding her for the first time. I remembered her first steps, her first words, her first day of kindergarten. I remembered how I worked double shifts in the fields and at the diner when my husband died and she was barely 8 years old. How I broke my back, my hands, my entire soul so she could have what I never had. Education. That was my obsession. That my daughter would study, that she would go to college, that she would never have to work under the scorching sun like me, that she would never have to come home with bleeding hands and a wrecked back. And I succeeded. Olivia finished high school with honors. She got into a top-tier private university, one of the best in the country. She studied business administration. She graduated and landed an excellent job at a major firm in the city. She moved away from the farm. She moved away from the poverty. She moved away from everything I represented. And then she met Julian. Julian came into our lives 3 years ago. Tall, handsome, with that slicked-back black hair and a smile that showed perfectly whitened teeth. He came from old money, as they say. His father owned several companies. His mother was a member of the most exclusive country clubs in the city. The first time I met him, he shook my hand firmly, but looked away quickly, as if making eye contact with me made him uncomfortable, as if I were something he preferred not to see up close. Olivia was radiant beside him. My quiet warnings, my gut feelings, everything was silenced by my daughter's happiness. If she loved him, I had to accept it. That is what mothers do, right? I opened my eyes and checked my watch. 11:15. The ceremony would start soon. I got up from the bench and walked back toward the church. I needed to use the ladies' room before everything started. I entered the building and asked where the restrooms were. They pointed me down an elegant hallway with marble floors and crystal chandeliers. Even the bathrooms in this cathedral were more luxurious than any place I had ever lived. I pushed the door to the women's restroom and walked in. It was enormous. Giant mirrors with gold frames, white marble sinks, fresh flowers in crystal vases. The scent of expensive perfume floated in the air. I went into one of the stalls and closed the door. That was when I heard voices. Male voices coming from the hallway, right outside the bathroom door. "The old hag is here." It was Julian's voice. I would recognize that voice anywhere. Yeah. I saw her a while ago, wearing that cheap dress and those awful shoes. It was another male voice I didn't recognize. Laughter followed, cruel laughter that made my blood run cold. "The poor hillbilly smells like manure. She just got here," Julian said with a mocking tone that pierced me like 1,000 needles. "Thank God Olivia has her under control. The old woman will stay quiet in her corner and won't ruin the photos." I stood frozen inside the stall. My legs were shaking so hard I had to lean against the wall to keep from falling. My heart was beating so loudly I thought they might hear it from outside. "Does Olivia really put up with her?" the other voice asked. "Barely," Julian replied with disdain. "She says she is embarrassed by her. Imagine. All our friends here, important people, CEOs, and then this woman shows up looking like she walked out of a farmer's market. She smells like dirt, like the sticks, like poverty." More laughter. Each chuckle felt like an invisible slap across my face. "But she is her mother, bro. You have to do something," the other man said. "After today, problem solved. I already talked to Olivia. The old woman lives 4 hours away, in that horrible little town. We will visit her once a year, maybe for Christmas. And that's it. The rest of the time she stays there, far away from our life." "Smart. And what about the inheritance?" "Olivia said the old lady has some properties." My breath stopped. Properties? Were they talking about my money? "Oh, that is the best part," Julian continued, and I could hear the malicious grin in his voice. "The peasant worked like a mule her whole life and saved every penny. She has land, she has a house that is worth quite a bit in the center of town, and she has savings. Olivia says it is at least $300,000 in total." "You don't say." "Yeah, and the best part is the old lady adores us. Well, she adores Olivia. She would do anything for her daughter. She already put the house where we live in the name of a family LLC, something like that." Olivia explained it to me, but I didn't pay much attention. "The point is, when the old lady kicks the bucket, everything will be ours. And if she takes a long time to die?" Julian laughed. That laugh pierced my soul. She is 72 years old. She worked like a slave her whole life. Her health can't be good. I give her 5 years, max, and in the meantime, let her stay in her little hick town. We will keep living our life here, in the city, in the house she gifted us without even realizing how stupid she was. You are a genius, Julian. No, buddy. I am just a realist. Olivia got out of poverty thanks to her mother, that is true. But now she is ashamed of where she comes from, and I don't blame her. Why would we want that woman in our lives? She would just make us look bad. The footsteps moved away. Their voices faded down the hall, but their words remained etched in my brain like branding iron burns. I stepped out of the stall with trembling legs. I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize the woman staring back at me. Her eyes were red, her hands gripping the edge of the marble sink, her mouth set in a thin line. The poor hillbilly who smells bad. Those words bounced around my head over and over again. I lifted my arm and smelled my clothes. It smelled like lavender soap, like clean, like decent. It didn't smell like dirt because I had showered 3 times before coming. It didn't smell like the farm because I had left that life behind for today, just for today, to see my daughter get married. But to them, I would always smell like poverty. I would always be the peasant who didn't deserve to be in their elegant world. And my Olivia, my baby girl, the daughter for whom I sacrificed everything. She felt ashamed of me too. The pain I felt in that moment has no name. It was something deeper than sadness, more devastating than betrayal. It was as if they had ripped the heart out of my chest and stomped on it right in front of my eyes. I splashed cold water on my face. Breathe, Martha, breathe. But then I remembered something else, something Julian had said. She already put the house where we live in the name of a family LLC. My mind started working fast. The house where Olivia and Julian lived was a beautiful property in one of the best suburbs of the city. 3 stories, spacious yard, 4-car garage, valued at least at $500,000. I had bought that house 2 years ago, when Olivia told me she was marrying Julian, when she told me they needed a place to start their life together. I sold 2 of my most productive plots of land and put up the money, $250,000 that I had saved over 30 years of labor. But Olivia asked me for a favor. She told me not to put the house in her name directly because of tax issues. She asked me to put it in the name of a company she would create, a family LLC where I would be the owner, but they would manage it. I signed the papers without reading much. I trusted my daughter. I trusted blindly. Now I understood. They wanted to control that property. They wanted me to die so they could keep everything. And in the meantime, they would keep me away, hidden, embarrassed to show me in public. I dried my face with a soft cloth towel that probably cost more than my entire dress. I looked in the mirror again. This time, I saw something different in my eyes. It wasn't just pain. It was something colder, more calculating, because I remembered something they didn't know, something even Olivia didn't know. A week ago, exactly 7 days ago, I had gone to visit my lawyer, Robert, a 60-year-old man who had been a friend of my late husband. I had brought him all the documents for the house, the land, the bank accounts. Martha, Robert had said to me while reviewing the papers, this company that Olivia created has some strange clauses. Are you sure you read everything before signing? No, I confessed. I trusted my daughter. Robert frowned. He spent the next 2 hours explaining things I didn't fully understand. Complicated words about transfers, beneficiaries, power of attorney. What I am telling you, Martha, is that according to these documents, you are the owner of the company. Yes, but your daughter and son-in-law have the power to sell the property without your consent. They can make decisions about your assets without consulting you. The world crashed down on me that day. But Robert wasn't finished. However, he continued, there is still time to fix this. We can transfer the property directly to your personal name, dissolve the company, protect your assets. How long would that take? I asked him. If we start now, a week. Just in time before the wedding. I signed every paper Robert put in front of me. Transfer documents, LLC dissolution, new deeds. Everything in order, everything legal, everything sealed and certified. The house is now completely in your name, Martha, Robert told me 3 days ago, handing me a folder with all the new documents. No one can touch it without your written authorization. Neither your daughter nor your son-in-law have any power over this property. I thanked him with tears in my eyes. I thought I was being paranoid. I thought I was exaggerating, that Robert was being too cautious. Now, standing in this marble bathroom, having heard my son-in-law's true intentions, I understood that Robert had saved me. He had saved me from being robbed, from being used, from being discarded like trash once I was no longer useful. The house where Olivia and Julian lived, that $500,000 property, was completely in my name. They didn't know it, and they were about to find out. But not now, not right this moment. I walked out of the bathroom and headed down the hall, back toward the main sanctuary. My steps were firm now. The trembling had disappeared. The pain was still there, sharp and deep, but it had been wrapped in something stronger, in determination, in clarity. I saw Julian at the altar, adjusting his suit. He looked impeccable in his black tuxedo, his silk tie, his shiny shoes, the perfect man, the ideal son-in-law, the successful future every mother would want for her daughter. But I now knew the truth. Behind that perfect smile was a rotten heart. A man who was marrying my daughter not for love, but for convenience, for money, for status. A wedding coordinator approached me with a tense smile. "Mrs. Martha, allow me to take you to your seat." "Where are you seating me?" I asked. She checked her tablet. "Row 7, right side." Row 7. Not in the front row, where the mother of the bride sits. Not in the second, nor the third. Row 7, almost at the back of the church, where the people who don't really matter sit, where the filler guests take up space. "Are you sure?" I asked calmly. "Yes, ma'am." "Are those the bride's instructions?" Of course. Olivia had put me there. Away from the cameras, away from the important photos, away from where anyone could see me and ask who I was. "Fine," I said. "Take me to my seat." I walked down the center aisle following the coordinator. We passed the first few rows where the important families were seated. Julian's mother was in the front row, wearing a pearl-colored dress that probably cost $5,000. The aunts, the uncles, the cousins, all in elegant clothes and sparkling jewelry. We reached row 7. I sat on the end, next to a couple I didn't know and who didn't speak a word to me either. From there, I could see everything, but I wasn't seen. I could observe but not be observed. I was invisible. Exactly what they wanted. The music began to play. A majestic organ filled the cathedral with melodies that likely cost another $3,000 to hire the most prestigious organist in the city. The main doors opened slowly, and the guests stood up. First came the bridesmaids, 5 young, beautiful women in ivory dresses that floated as they walked. Each one carried a bouquet of white roses. They all smiled with that perfect smile practiced in front of a mirror. I recognized some of them. Olivia's friends from college, girls from wealthy families who never knew. My daughter came from a small town, from a humble house, from a farming mother. Then the groomsmen entered, young men in tuxedos identical to Julian's. They walked with that confidence that only money and privilege can give. One of them was the man who had been talking to Julian outside the bathroom. I stared at him hard as he passed my row. He didn't even turn to look at me. And then she appeared. My Olivia. The world stopped for a moment. Despite everything, despite the pain, despite the betrayal, I couldn't stop my eyes from filling with tears when I saw her. She was absolutely radiant. Her dress was a masterpiece. Handmade French lace, embroidered with thousands of tiny pearls. The veil cascaded from a crystal tiara that sparkled under the cathedral lights. Her hair was swept up in an elaborate style that probably took 3 hours to create. Her makeup was flawless. She looked like a princess straight out of a fairy tale. The dress had cost $40,000. I know because I paid for it. When Olivia showed me the photo 6 months ago, she told me it was the dress of her dreams, that she had seen it in a high-fashion bridal magazine, that it was designed by someone famous in Paris. "But it is too expensive, Mom," she told me with a sad voice. "I will never be able to buy it." "How much is it?" I asked her. $40,000. "It is crazy. I will look for something cheaper." "No," I told her, taking her hand. "It is your wedding. You only get married once. You will have that dress. I sold one of my smaller plots of land, the one near the river. It was fertile land, good for planting. It gave me exactly $42,000. I gave the money to Olivia in cash. She cried and hugged me. "You are the best mother in the world," she told me. "I don't know what I would do without you." Now, watching her walk down that aisle on the arm of Jack, my younger brother, who agreed to play the role because Olivia's father was no longer with us, I wondered if she remembered those words, if they were ever sincere, or if even in that moment she was planning to push me out of her life. Jack looked at me briefly as he passed my row. His eyes reflected worry. He knew where they had seated me. He knew this wasn't right, but he kept walking, fulfilling his duty to give the bride away. Olivia passed by me without looking. Her eyes were fixed on Julian, who waited for her at the altar with that perfect smile. She didn't turn toward row 7. She didn't seek my face. She didn't spare me a glance, or a gesture of recognition. It was as if I didn't exist. I sat down slowly as they reached the altar. The ceremony began. The priest spoke about love, about commitment, about family. Beautiful words that sounded hollow in my ears. I looked around. All the guests were focused on the couple. Women wiped away tears of emotion. Men smiled. Cameras captured every moment. Professional photographers moved silently along the sides, immortalizing every angle. I was in the back, in the shadows, invisible. I thought about all the times Olivia had called me crying when she was in college, when she didn't have money for books, when she needed to pay tuition, when she wanted to go on that study abroad trip all her classmates were taking. I always found the money. I worked overtime. I took extra jobs on weekends. I sold chickens. I sold eggs. I sold whatever was necessary. "Thank you, Mom. I will pay you back someday," she always said. She never paid me back. I never expected it. That is what mothers do. We give without expecting anything in return. Or at least that is what I believed. The ceremony continued. Julian and Olivia exchanged vows. He spoke about loving her in sickness and in health, for richer or for poorer. What irony! This man who mocked poverty, who despised the poor woman who had made this wedding possible, promised to love in poverty. Olivia spoke about honor and respect, about being together through thick and thin, about family. Every word was a lie wrapped in silk and lace. They exchanged rings that I also paid for. $15,000 for the set. White gold with diamonds. Julian had chosen the most expensive ones in the jewelry store, of course. "They are for a lifetime," Olivia told me when we went to buy them. "I want them to be special." I gave her the money without thinking twice. I withdrew part of my retirement savings, money I had kept for years for my old age, for emergencies, for an uncertain future. The priest pronounced them husband and wife. Julian lifted Olivia's veil and kissed her. The guests applauded. Triumphant music filled the cathedral. Rose petals fell from somewhere in the ceiling, another elegant detail that probably cost $1,000 more. They walked down the center aisle as the perfect couple, smiling, waving, shining. When they passed my row, Olivia looked briefly in my direction. Our eyes met for a fraction of a second. I saw something in her gaze. It wasn't love. It wasn't gratitude. It was something colder. It was discomfort. It was the wish that I wasn't there, that I would disappear, that I would stop existing in her new and perfect world. Then she looked away and kept walking. The ceremony ended. The guests began to leave the church. I remained seated, letting everyone pass first. I was in no hurry. I had nowhere special to go. An older lady stopped next to my row. She wore an elegant dress and a hat with feathers. "Excuse me," she said with a kind smile. "You are family of the bride?" "I am her mother," I replied. Her expression changed. Confusion, surprise, discomfort. "Oh, I thought that. Well, the mother of the bride usually sits in the front row." "Yes," I said simply. "Usually." She didn't know what else to say. She mumbled something about what a beautiful ceremony it was and walked away quickly. I thought so too. What a beautiful ceremony it had been. What a well-decorated lie. I left the cathedral and walked toward the reception. It was at an event hall 2 blocks away, a restored historic building with impressive gardens, another place that cost a fortune to rent, $12,000 just for the space, another $30,000 for the food and drinks, $10,000 for the decor, $5,000 for the DJ and live music, $8,000 for the 7-tier cake I had seen in the photos. All paid for by me. Every penny. Every single penny. I arrived at the hall and found my name on the seating chart, table 18, almost at the back of the room, far from the head table where the bride and groom would be, far from the important families' tables. I sat in my assigned chair. The table was half empty. There were only 4 other people, 2 elderly couples I didn't know. We greeted each other briefly. They didn't seem to know many people there either. From my table, I could see the head table. It was on a raised platform, decorated with thousands of white flowers and candles. Julian and Olivia sat there, along with the maid of honor and best man. All eyes would be on them. All toasts would be directed to them. The tables near the main one were occupied by elegant people, women in designer dresses, men with watches that cost more than a car, conversations about business, about trips to Europe, about beach properties. My table was silent. The other guests ate bread from the basket and drank water in silence. The food was served. A 5-course menu prepared by a famous chef. Salad with ingredients I had never seen. Soup of who knows what with artistic garnishes. Imported fish with elaborate sauces. Beef that melted in your mouth. Dessert that looked more like a work of art than food. All delicious, all perfect, all empty. I looked toward the head table. Julian was laughing with his friends. Olivia was smiling and posing for photos. Both looked happy. Happy in their bubble of luxury and lies. The speeches began after the main course. Julian's father stood up first, a burly man with gray hair and a powerful voice that filled the room without needing a microphone. He spoke about his son, about how proud he was, about the family they were building, about the brilliant future awaiting them. Julian always knew what he wanted in life, he said with a smile, and when he saw Olivia, he knew she was the perfect woman, an educated, sophisticated woman with vision, a woman who shares our family values. Family values. What an interesting choice of words. I wondered if their values included despising working people, if they included mocking mothers who sacrificed everything for their children. Then Julian's mother spoke, a thin woman with expensive jewelry and a dress that likely cost more than my entire wardrobe combined. She cried elegant tears while talking about gaining a daughter, about how lucky they were to have Olivia in the family. Olivia fits perfectly into our world, she said, delicately wiping her tears with a silk handkerchief. It is like she always belonged here. Of course, because no one knew where Olivia really came from. No one knew she had grown up in a small 2-bedroom house, that she wore second-hand clothes during her childhood, that her mother worked in the fields from dawn to dusk to put food on the table. Olivia had erased all of that. She had rewritten her history, and I was the chapter she needed to delete. I waited. I waited for the moment when traditionally the mother of the bride speaks, when she shares anecdotes about her daughter, when she gives her blessing, when she toasts the couple's future. But that moment never came. The master of ceremonies moved directly to the best man. Julian's best friend told funny stories about their friendship. Olivia's maid of honor spoke about the college years they shared. No one called me up. No one mentioned my name. It was as if the bride had been born from nothing, as if she had no mother. I felt something break inside me. It wasn't just pain. It was something deeper. It was the final realization that I didn't matter in my daughter's life, that I had been reduced to an inconvenience, to something shameful that had to be kept hidden. After the speeches, the dancing began. Julian and Olivia had their first dance as husband and wife. A romantic song filled the room. Everyone watched them with admiration. The perfect couple, the fairy tale come true. Then Julian danced with his mother. She smiled with pride, with love, with that visible connection between mother and son. The cameras captured every moment. Flashes lit up the dance floor. I waited again. I waited for the traditional moment when the bride dances with her parent. But Olivia danced with Uncle Jack, my brother, who had played the father role walking her down the aisle, now also played the father figure in the dance. While they danced, I could see the discomfort on Jack's face. He knew this was wrong. He knew I should be out there on the dance floor with my daughter. When the song ended, Jack tried to lead Olivia toward my table. I could see him saying something to her, pointing in my direction, but Olivia shook her head. She smiled, gave Jack a kiss on the cheek, and walked away toward another group of guests. Jack came to my table, his face red with shame and anger. "Martha," he said quietly, sitting in the empty chair next to me. "This isn't right. I told Olivia to come say hello to you, to dance with you, but she is busy." I interrupted him with a calm voice. "It is her special day. She has many guests to attend to. You are her mother. You should be her priority." "Things change, Jack. People change." My brother looked at me with eyes full of worry. He was 65, 7 years younger than me. We had grown up together in the same poverty, in the same struggle, but he never had children. He never experienced this kind of betrayal that can only come from your own blood. "What are you going to do?" he asked me. I looked him straight in the eyes. "I don't know yet, but I am going to do something." The party continued. Music, laughter, dancing. Julian and his friends were in a corner drinking expensive whiskey and smoking cigars. Olivia was surrounded by her friends, all admiring her ring, her dress, her perfect life. At one point in the night, I went to the restroom again. I needed a moment of peace, away from that room full of hypocrisy. As I was leaving the restroom, I heard familiar voices. Olivia and her friends were in an adjacent lounge area, probably touching up their makeup. "Your wedding is incredible," one of them said. "Everything is perfect." "It must have cost a fortune. More than $200,000 in total," Olivia replied with pride. "Julian and I wanted it to be unforgettable." "Did your parents help with the expenses?" There was a pause. My heart beat faster, awaiting the answer. "My father died years ago," Olivia said finally. "And your mother?" "Well, she doesn't have much money. She is a simple woman from the country. She lives off her social security." Lies. It was all a lie. "Oh, I am sorry," the friend said. "So Julian and you paid for everything yourselves. That is impressive." "Yes," Olivia answered. "We have worked very hard. Julian has an excellent position in his father's company, and I have my career. We are doing very well." "Is your mother here at the wedding?" Another pause. Longer this time. "Yes, she is here. Somewhere. Honestly, bringing her was more out of obligation than anything else. She doesn't really fit in with our social circle. She is different. But I didn't want to be cruel by leaving her out." The soft laughter of the friends pierced me like knives. "I understand perfectly," one of them said. "Sometimes family can be complicated. But you did the right thing inviting her." "Yes. Well, after today we won't have to see her very often. She lives far away. Julian and I already talked about setting boundaries, short visits on special occasions, nothing more. We don't want her interfering in our life." "Smart. You guys need your space." I walked away from that door feeling numb. I walked on autopilot back to the hall. I sat in my chair at table 18. And in that moment, something inside me died. It wasn't love. A mother's love never dies completely, no matter how deep the wound. But it was the illusion, the hope, the blind faith I had held in my daughter. That died that night. And in its place, something colder was born. More calculating, more determined. I took my cell phone out of my purse. It was a simple, old phone, nothing compared to the smartphones everyone else had. But it worked, and it had the numbers I needed. I dialed Robert, my lawyer. It was almost 10 at night, but he had told me to call him whenever necessary, at any hour. "Martha," he answered after the third ring. "How is the wedding?" "Robert," I said with a steady voice, "I need you to prepare some additional documents first thing tomorrow morning." "What kind of documents?" "I want to modify my will. I want to ensure that every property, every bank account, every penny I have is completely protected. And I want to establish very specific conditions regarding who can inherit and under what circumstances." There was a pause on the other end of the line. Robert knew me well. He knew something serious had happened. "Are you sure?" he asked. "Completely sure. And there is something else. Remember we talked about the house where Olivia and Julian live? The one we just transferred to my name?" "Yes, of course. I want you to investigate if there is any debt associated with that property. Any loan that Julian or Olivia might have tried to take out using that house as collateral. Any suspicious financial movement. I can have that information in 2 days." "Perfect. Also, I want you to investigate Julian's finances. His debts, his investments, his real situation. Everything. That will take a little more time, but I can do it." Martha, what happened? What happened is that I finally opened my eyes. Robert, it turns out my daughter and son-in-law see me as a source of money, not as family. And it turns out I am not going to let them use me anymore. I understand. I will start the work tomorrow. I hung up the phone and put it back in my purse. I looked toward the head table. Olivia and Julian were cutting the cake. That 7-tier cake that cost $8,000. They smiled for the cameras. They faked perfect love. The party ended past midnight. Guests began to say their goodbyes. Hugs, kisses on cheeks, promises to see each other soon. Olivia and Julian were at the entrance of the hall saying goodbye to each person, thanking them for their presence, smiling until their faces hurt. I waited until the end, until almost everyone had left, until only a few stragglers remained and the cleaning staff began to discreetly tidy up. I approached the newlyweds. It was the first time all night I would be face to face with my daughter. "Olivia?" I said softly. She turned around. Her smile froze for a second when she saw me, but she quickly recomposed it. "Mom," she said with a voice that tried to sound warm but came out forced. "Thanks for coming." As if I were just any guest. As if I weren't the woman who gave her life. The woman who paid every penny of this ridiculously expensive wedding. "Everything was beautiful," I said. "The ceremony, the reception, everything." "Yes, we are very happy with how everything turned out," Olivia replied, looking at Julian with that conspiratorial smile. Julian looked at me with those cold eyes. The same look he would give an annoying stranger. "Thanks for coming, Mrs. Martha," he said with exaggerated formality. He didn't even call me mom or mother-in-law. Just Mrs. Martha, as if I were the maid. "Are you leaving tomorrow morning back to the farm?" Olivia asked. It wasn't a question. It was a thinly veiled suggestion. "Yes," I lied. "I am taking the 8 a.m. bus." "Perfect. We leave for our honeymoon at 10. 2 weeks in Europe, Paris, Rome, Barcelona." Olivia practically glowed talking about her trip. Another $30,000 expense I had covered without her even having to ask me. "Enjoy it," I said. "Sure. When we get back, we will call you. Maybe in a couple of months we can come visit you at the farm, for a weekend or something." A couple of months, a weekend. Crumbs of attention she threw at me, as if I were a dog begging for scraps under the table. "Sure," I replied. "Whenever you want." Olivia gave me a quick, mechanical hug, without any real feeling. Julian didn't even bother to get close. He just nodded his head. "Take care, Mom," Olivia said. And those were the last words she directed at me that night. I left the hall and walked toward the street. Jack was waiting for me outside with his car. "I will take you to the hotel," he told me. I had stayed at a small, budget hotel on the outskirts of the city. Nothing fancy, but clean and comfortable. $30 a night. Meanwhile, Julian and Olivia would sleep in a bridal suite costing $500 a night at the exclusive downtown hotel. Another bill I had paid. During the ride, Jack didn't say anything. He just looked at me sideways, worried. Finally, when we were arriving at the hotel, he spoke. "Martha, what I saw today isn't right. The way they treated you is unforgivable." "I know. Are you going to do something about it?" I looked at him. My younger brother, the man who had always protected me, even when we were kids. The only family I really had left that was worth it. "Yes, Jack, I am going to do something. But I need your help. Whatever you need, you know that. Tomorrow morning, after Olivia and Julian leave for their honeymoon, I want you to come with me to the house where they live. I have the keys. We are going to do a full inventory of everything in there." Jack frowned. "An inventory? That house is in my name. Legally, it is mine. And I want to document exactly what is inside before taking the next steps." "Are you going to kick them out?" "I don't know yet. First, I need information. I need to know exactly what situation they are in. What do they have? What do they owe? What have they been planning?" Jack nodded slowly. "I will be here at 9 in the morning." That night I barely slept. I lay awake in that cheap hotel room, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of the wedding. Every look of contempt, every cruel word, every lie. But I also thought about the future, about what would come next, because now I had information. I had power. And I had the law on my side. At 7 in the morning my phone rang. It was Robert. "Martha, I know it is early, but I found something you need to know immediately. Tell me. I investigated the financial movements related to the property. Julian tried to use the house as collateral for a $200,000 loan 3 weeks ago. My heart raced. 3 weeks ago? Before the wedding. Exactly. He went to the bank with falsified documents, claiming he was the owner of the house. Fortunately, the bank did its due diligence and discovered the property wasn't in his name. They rejected the loan. Why did he need $200,000? Here comes the interesting part. I investigated further. Julian has gambling debts. Huge debts. He owes money to dangerous people. At least $150,000. I felt the blood freeze in my veins. Gambling debts, illegal casinos, sports betting. He has been gambling for years. His parents don't know. Olivia probably doesn't either. He has been covering the debts with small loans here and there, but now he is desperate. That is why he tried to use your house. What happens if he doesn't pay? Robert paused. These people don't forgive debts, Martha. They can get violent. They can threaten. They can hurt people. Olivia is in danger. If she lives with him, potentially yes. I closed my eyes. Despite everything, despite the pain, despite the betrayal, she was still my daughter. I couldn't let anything bad happen to her. Robert, I need you to do something else. Investigate if there is a way for me to pay those debts directly to the creditors without Julian knowing. And then I need those debts to be recorded as loans that he owes to me. That is complicated, but I can try. Are you sure you want to put that much money into this? It is to protect my daughter, not to protect him. I understand. I will see what I can do. I will call you in a few hours. I hung up and sat on the bed. $150,000. It was almost half of my total life savings. But if that kept Olivia safe, I would do it, even if she had betrayed me, even if she had despised me, even if she had erased me from her life. She was still my daughter. At 9 o'clock sharp, Jack arrived at the hotel. We got into his car and headed toward Olivia and Julian's house. It was an exclusive residential area. Large houses with perfect lawns, luxury cars in every driveway. The kind of neighborhood where people like me would normally only enter as a housekeeper. We parked in front of the house. It was even more impressive than I remembered. 3 floors of modern architecture, huge windows, a professionally designed garden, a fountain in the front. It was worth every penny of the $500,000 it had cost. I took the keys out of my purse. Keys Olivia had given me 2 years ago when we bought the house. Just in case there is an emergency, she had told me. I had never used them. I unlocked the front door and we entered. The interior was even more luxurious. Marble floors, designer furniture, modern art on the walls, a curved staircase leading to the upper floors. Everything decorated with exquisite taste and an unlimited budget. This must have cost another $200,000 in furniture and decor, Jack murmured. Probably more, I replied. We walked through every room. The living room with a sofa that looked like it came from a magazine. The dining room with a table for 12. The kitchen with state-of-the-art appliances. Every detail screamed luxury and excess. We went up to the second floor. 3 guest rooms, each with its own bathroom. All perfectly decorated, though probably never used. On the 3rd floor was the master bedroom, enormous, with a walk-in closet, private bath with a jacuzzi, and a balcony overlooking the city. Jack took out his phone and started taking pictures of everything. Just in case, he said. I opened the drawers in the walk-in closet. Expensive clothes, designer shoes, purses that cost thousands of dollars each, jewelry in velvet cases. On Julian's desk, I found papers, lots of papers. I reviewed them quickly. Bank statements, bills, mail. And then I found something that made my blood run cold. A letter from a casino demanding payment of $50,000 within the next 7 days, or they would take necessary measures. The date on the letter was 2 weeks ago. The 7 days had already passed. I took photos of the letter with my phone. I also photographed all the bank statements I found. Red numbers everywhere, credit card debts, personal loans, unpaid bills. Julian lived in a $500,000 house, but he was financially ruined. Martha, look at this. Jack called me from the other side of the room. He was in front of a wall safe, partially hidden behind a painting. It is open. No, But the combination is written here." He pointed to a piece of paper taped to the frame of the painting. Numbers written carelessly. Julian was arrogant even about protecting his secrets. Jack punched in the combination. The safe opened with a click. Inside were more documents. And money. Bundles of $100 bills. I counted quickly. $20,000 in cash. "Where did he get this?" Jack muttered. I kept reviewing the documents. And then I found something that broke my heart all over again, even though I thought it couldn't break anymore. It was a loan agreement. Signed by Olivia. My daughter had borrowed $50,000 from a payday loan company with 40% annual interest. The date was 6 months ago. The money had been used, according to the document, for wedding expenses. But I had paid for the wedding. Every penny. So where had that money gone? I kept searching and found the answer. Bank transfers from Olivia's account to Julian's account. $50,000 transferred in 5 payments of $10,000 over the last 6 months. Olivia had been covering Julian's gambling debts. She had borrowed money she couldn't pay to save her husband, and probably not even his parents knew. "This girl is in huge trouble," Jack said, reading over my shoulder. "I know." My phone rang. It was Robert again. "Martha, I managed to contact one of Julian's creditors. They are serious people, but they are willing to negotiate. If you pay the full debt in cash, they are willing to transfer the title of the debt to your name. Julian will owe you instead of owing them." "How much in total?" "That specific creditor claims $120,000. He is the biggest one. There are smaller ones, but this is the dangerous one. Do it. Transfer the money today. But I want everything in writing. I want a legal contract stating that Julian owes me those $120,000 plus interest." "Are you sure?" "It is a lot of money, Martha." "I am sure." "Do it now, before they leave for Europe. I want that debt transferred while they are on the plane." "All right. I will send you the documents to sign." I hung up and looked at Jack. "Let's go. We have enough information." We left the house, locking everything exactly as we found it, as if we had never been there. Back in the car, Jack looked at me with a mix of admiration and concern. "What exactly are you planning, sister?" "I am going to save my daughter from her own stupidity. And I am going to make sure Julian learns a lesson he will never forget. And then? Then we will see if Olivia really loves me or if she only loves my money." The following days were a whirlwind of activity. Robert worked fast. He paid Julian's debt with the dangerous creditors. He got all the necessary legal documents. Now Julian owed me $120,000 directly, with a signed and notarized contract. We also discovered more things. Julian had been lying to his own parents. He had told them he had an important job in his company, but in reality, he had been fired 3 months ago for embezzlement. They didn't press charges because he was the owner's son, but he didn't work there anymore. He had been pretending to go to the office every day. In reality, he spent mornings at casinos and afternoons in bars. Olivia knew nothing of this, or at least that seemed to be the case according to text messages Robert managed to obtain through legal discovery. She truly believed Julian was a successful man, that they had a bright future together. Poor, naive girl. She had traded her mother, who genuinely loved her, for a man who was only using her. A week after the wedding, while Olivia and Julian were in Paris, pretending to be the perfect couple, I received an unexpected call. It was Cousin Sarah. She lived in the city, in a middle-class neighborhood. She worked as a paralegal at a law firm. She had always been sharp and observant. "Martha, I need to tell you something," she said with an urgent voice. "Something I saw a few months ago, but I wasn't sure if I should tell you." "Tell me." "I saw Julian. With another woman. It wasn't Olivia." My heart stopped. "When?" "About 4 months ago. I was at a restaurant for a work lunch, and I saw them at a corner table. They were very close, very affectionate. The woman was pregnant, Martha, very pregnant." "Are you sure it was Julian?" "Completely sure. I even took a discreet photo with my phone. I didn't know what to do with it, but something told me I should keep it. Send it to me. Now." 2 minutes later, the photo arrived on my phone. There was Julian. Unmistakable. With a blonde woman about 30 years old. She had a prominent belly, at least 7 months pregnant. Julian had his hand on that belly. Both were smiling. "Do you know who she is?" I asked Sarah. I did some quiet digging. Her name is Jessica. She works at a high-end boutique downtown. She lives in an apartment that, curiously, is registered to a company name, the same company you guys used for Olivia's house. Everything started to fit together. Julian didn't just have gambling debts. He had another family, an apartment, a pregnant mistress. And he had been using my daughter's money, my money, to maintain this double life. Sarah, I need you to investigate more. I need to know everything about that woman. Where exactly does she work? Where does she live? When is the baby born? Everything. I already did, Sarah replied. I work at a law firm, remember? I have access to certain databases. The baby was born 3 weeks ago. It is a boy, and he is registered with Julian's last name. 3 weeks. That meant the baby was born just before the wedding. Julian married my daughter knowing he had a newborn son with another woman. Martha, there is more, Sarah continued. The apartment where Jessica lives, the monthly payments are $3,000, and according to the bank records I could see, those payments come from transfers Olivia makes every month. Olivia is paying for her husband's mistress's apartment without knowing it. Exactly. Julian tells her it is an investment, that they are renting out the apartment. But in reality, his other family lives there. I felt a rage so deep my hands shook. This man wasn't just a gambler and a liar. He was a complete fraud. A parasite who was destroying my daughter's life while she worked hard to maintain his lifestyle of lies. Thank you, Sarah. This is exactly what I needed. What are you going to do? I don't know yet. But it will be something Julian will never forget. That night, I met with Robert and Jack at my small farmhouse. I put all the evidence on the table. The photos, the documents, the contracts, the debts. Everything. We have enough to destroy him, Robert said. We can expose him publicly. We can ruin his reputation. No, I said firmly. I don't want to destroy him publicly. I want something better. What? Jack asked. I want him to feel exactly what I felt. I want him to experience humiliation, betrayal, loss, but I want it to come from where he least expects it. I don't follow, Robert said. Olivia and Julian return from their honeymoon in a week. When they get back, they are going to find a surprise. They are going to receive a summons for a family meeting. A meeting to discuss inheritance and property matters. It sounds boring. It sounds routine. They won't suspect a thing. And what will happen at that meeting? Jack asked. In that meeting, in front of witnesses, I am going to present every piece of evidence we have. I am going to show Olivia who the man she married really is. And I am going to show Julian that the stupid country bumpkin he despises is actually the owner of everything he thinks he has. Robert smiled slowly. It is brilliant. But there is more, I continued. Before that meeting, I am going to invite certain people. I am going to invite Julian's parents. I am going to invite some of his close friends, the same ones who were at the wedding mocking me. And I am going to invite Jessica, the mistress. Jack's jaw dropped. Exactly. She deserves to know the truth too. She deserves to know that Julian got married while she was giving birth to his son, and everyone else deserves to see who Julian really is when all his masks fall off. I spent the next few days meticulously preparing everything. Every detail had to be perfect. There could be no mistakes. This would be my one chance to get justice. Robert handled the legal documents. He prepared individual folders for each person attending the meeting. Each folder contained specific evidence, copies of contracts, photographs, bank statements, everything organized and labeled professionally. Sarah took charge of contacting Jessica. It wasn't hard. The poor woman was desperate to talk to someone. Julian had disappeared for 2 weeks without explanation. She didn't know about the wedding. She didn't know about Olivia. She believed Julian was single, that he was working on an important project out of town. He told me he would marry me after the baby was born, Jessica told Sarah through tears. He promised me he would leave his job and we would move together to a bigger house. That is why I agreed to live in that small apartment that cost $3,000 a month, that my daughter was paying for, thinking it was an investment. Sarah told Jessica there was important information about Julian she needed to know, that she should come to a meeting where everything would be clarified. Jessica agreed immediately. She was tired of the lies, the absences, raising a newborn alone. Jack took charge of contacting Julian's parents. He told them that I, as the new owner of the house where the newlyweds lived, needed to discuss certain legal matters requiring the presence of the whole family. It sounded formal and boring. They suspected nothing. He also contacted Leo, an accountant who had worked with me for years managing my properties and savings. Leo had done a complete audit of all of Julian's finances we could legally obtain. The numbers were devastating. The meeting was scheduled for Saturday, 3 days after Olivia and Julian returned from Europe. The summons said it was at 3 p.m. at Robert's office. A neutral place, professional, no red flags. Thursday night, Olivia and Julian landed at the airport. Olivia sent me a brief text. We landed. Everything was beautiful. Call you next week. Next week. Always postponing. Always keeping distance. I replied. Glad to hear it. Rest up from the trip. By the way, there is a meeting on Saturday about some property matters. Robert, my lawyer, needs you both present. It is routine, but necessary. Sending you the address. Olivia replied. Can't it wait? We just got back. It is important, honey. It will only be a couple of hours. Fine. We will be there. Friday, I spent the entire day reviewing every detail with Robert. We went over every document, every piece of evidence, every word I would say. I had to be clear, direct, without emotion that could be misinterpreted as irrational revenge. Are you sure you want to do this? Robert asked me one last time. Once you start, there is no going back. I am completely sure. My daughter needs to see the truth, and Julian needs to face the consequences of his actions. Saturday arrived. I woke up early. I dressed with care. I didn't wear expensive or elegant clothes. I wore a simple, clean, dignified dress, the same type of clothing Julian had despised at the wedding. I wanted him to see me exactly as I am. A working woman, a farmer, a mother who is not ashamed of her past. I arrived at Robert's office at 2 p.m, an hour before the meeting started. I wanted to make sure everything was perfect. The conference room was spacious. Robert had prepared a long table with chairs for 12 people. At each spot lay a closed manila folder. At the front of the room was a projector connected to a laptop. The folders are organized by person, Robert explained. Each one contains only the information relevant to that specific person. When the time comes, you will ask them to open them. At 2:30, Julian's parents arrived. Mr. Richard Sterling, the father, was a 60-year-old man with that air of authority that money and power provide. His wife, Mrs. Catherine Sterling, was elegant and cold, as always. What is this about? Mr. Sterling asked with an annoyed tone. Interrupting our Saturday to talk about paperwork. Everything will be clarified soon, Robert said politely. Please, take a seat. At 2:45, Jessica arrived. She was carrying the baby in her arms. She was a beautiful woman, but looked tired, with dark circles under her eyes. The baby was sleeping wrapped in a light blue blanket. When Catherine saw the baby, her expression changed. Who are you? She asked suspiciously. I am Jessica. Julian asked me to come, she lied, following the instructions Sarah had given her. Julian? My son Julian. Yes, ma'am. Catherine looked at her husband with confusion. Richard frowned but said nothing more. At 3 o'clock exactly, Olivia and Julian arrived. They were tanned from Europe, relaxed, happy. Julian wore casual but expensive clothes. Olivia looked radiant in a summer dress. They entered the conference room smiling. That smile froze when they saw everyone gathered. What is this? Julian asked. I thought it was a private meeting about properties. Sit down, please, I said calmly. Everything will be explained. Olivia looked at me with confusion. Then she saw Jessica and the baby. Her expression changed to something between surprise and alarm. Julian, who is she? Olivia asked. Julian had turned pale. He was looking at Jessica as if she were a ghost. I don't know what you are talking about, Julian, Jessica said with a trembling voice. What is happening? Who is this woman? She is his wife, I said clearly. They got married 2.5 weeks ago. The silence that followed was deafening. Jessica dropped her jaw. The baby started to cry. Olivia stood up from her chair so fast it tipped over backward. What? What are you talking about, Mom? Sit down, Olivia, I said firmly. And listen. All of you are going to listen. Because it is time for the truth to be known. Robert locked the conference room door. No one would leave until everything had been revealed. Julian, I started, looking him straight in the eyes. 3 weeks ago, at your wedding, I heard you call me the poor hillbilly who smells like the farm. I heard how you planned to push me out of my daughter's life. I heard how you calculated how much time I had left to live so you could inherit my properties. Julian opened his mouth to protest, but I raised my hand. Don't speak. Just listen. Because what you didn't know is that the stupid country bumpkin you despise so much is the owner of absolutely everything you think you have. What? Julian tried to laugh, but it came out forced. That is ridiculous. Robert, I said. Robert pressed a button on the laptop. On the screen appeared the deed to the house where Olivia and Julian lived. This house, I continued, valued at $500,000, is registered in my name, Martha Davies, completely, without exceptions. You don't own anything, Julian. You live on my property. Julian's face went from white to red in seconds. That can't be. The house is in the name of the family LLC, Olivia told me. The company was dissolved, Robert explained with a professional voice. 2 weeks ago, the day before your wedding, Mrs. Martha transferred all property directly to her personal name. Here are the sealed and certified documents. Mr. Sterling leaned forward. Is this true? Completely true, Robert replied. And there is more. He pressed another button. Julian's bank statements appeared. Red numbers everywhere, debts totaling over $200,000. Julian, I said. I also know about your gambling debts. I know you lost your job 3 months ago for stealing money from your father's company. I know you have been lying to everyone, pretending to go to work when actually you spend the day at casinos. Catherine covered her mouth with her hand. You lost your job? For stealing? Dad, Julian turned to Mr. Sterling, desperate. I can explain all this. Silence, roared Mr. Sterling. His face was red with fury. I let you off for the theft. I gave you another chance, and you lied to me saying you were still working? But that isn't all, I continued. Julian also has a debt of $120,000 with very dangerous people. People who threatened to hurt him if he didn't pay. What? Olivia finally found her voice. It sounded broken, scared. I paid that debt, I said, looking at my daughter. I paid it last week while you were in Paris. I did it to protect you, Olivia, because even though you treated me like trash, even though you were ashamed of me, even though you hid me at your wedding like I was a disgrace, you are still my daughter. Tears began to roll down Olivia's cheeks. Mom, I didn't know any of this. I know. That is why you are here. So you know the truth. I turned toward Jessica. And you deserve to know the truth too. Robert changed the image. Photos of Julian with Jessica appeared. The baby photos. The apartment records. Julian has another family, I said clearly. This woman, Jessica, and her 3-week-old son. A son who was born days before your wedding, Olivia. Olivia froze. She looked at the photos on the screen as if they couldn't be real. No, that can't be true. It is true, Jessica said with a trembling voice. She had tears in her eyes too. Julian told me he loved me, that he would marry me, that we would build a family together. She is lying, yelled Julian, jumping to his feet. She is a crazy stalker. I don't know what she is talking about. Really? Robert pressed another button. Text messages appeared. Conversations between Julian and Jessica. Messages of love. Promises. Intimate photos. These messages are from your phone, Julian. We obtained them legally through phone records. And the apartment where Jessica lives, I continued, costs $3,000 a month, money that comes from Olivia's account. You told her it was an investment, that you were renting out the property, but in reality, your mistress and your son live there. Olivia stood up, swaying. She grabbed the table to keep from falling. I paid for your mistress's apartment. I worked overtime. I saved every penny. And it was for this? Olivia, please, let me explain. Julian tried to approach her, but Leo, the accountant who had been sitting in silence, stepped in between them. There is more, Leo said, opening his own laptop. I did a complete audit of the marriage finances. In the last 6 months, Olivia has deposited $180,000 between her account and the joint accounts. Julian has deposited exactly $0. Impossible, said Mr. Sterling. My son has a good salary. Your son hasn't worked in 3 months, Leo replied. He has no income. All the money they have spent, including the $30,000 honeymoon, came from Olivia's work or Mrs. Martha's savings. Also, Robert added, Julian tried to use his mother-in-law's house as collateral for a $200,000 loan a month ago. He presented documents to the bank claiming to be the owner. That is fraud. He could go to jail. Catherine stood up. This is a nightmare. Julian, how could you? How could you sink so low? I didn't want to. Julian suddenly started crying, real tears rolling down his face. The debts piled up. I needed money. I thought I could win it all back. I thought if I married Olivia, if I had access to her mother's properties, I could fix everything. You used me, whispered Olivia. You just used me for money. No, I love you. I really love you. Liar! Screamed Jessica. The baby was crying at full volume now. You told me you loved me too. You promised me marriage. Silence, everyone, I said with a firm voice, because I haven't finished yet. Everyone looked at me. Even Julian fell silent. Olivia, I said, looking my daughter straight in the eye. 3 weeks ago you sat me in row 7 at your wedding. You hid me like I was an embarrassment. You let your husband call me a poor hillbilly who smells like the farm, and you said nothing. You told your friends I was a burden, that I didn't fit in your elegant world. Olivia was sobbing now. Mom, I am sorry. I am so sorry. Are you sorry because you got caught? Or are you sorry because you really understand what you did? I took a folder out of my purse. This is a list of everything I paid for your wedding. Every bill, every expense, total, $205,000. I slid the folder to her. She opened it with trembling hands. This is a list of all the money I gave you during your adult life. College, $80,000. Your car, $25,000. Your clothes and expenses while you were studying, another $40,000. The house where you live, $250,000. Total, almost $400,000. Mom, and here is the will I just signed. I pulled out another document. All my money, all my properties, everything I have, is now in a trust. You can't touch it. Julian definitely can't touch it. If something happens to me, everything goes to a charity foundation that helps working women educate their children. The shock on Olivia's face was total. You disinherited me? Not completely. There is a clause. If you divorce Julian in the next 30 days, if you prove you understand the value of honest work and family respect, you can become my heir again. But you will have to earn it. You will have to show me that I am more than a source of money to you. Martha, intervened Mr. Sterling. This is between you and your daughter. My son made serious mistakes. I acknowledge that. But you have no right to demand a divorce. I am not demanding anything, I replied calmly. I am giving my daughter a choice. She can stay with a man who used her, who cheated on her, who has another child with another woman, or she can save herself. She decides. I stood up and looked at everyone in the room. The house where you live needs to be vacated in 15 days. It is my property, and I want it back. Julian, you owe me $120,000 plus interest. I have the legal documents. If you don't pay, I will sue you. And I have enough evidence of fraud to send you to prison. I don't have that money, Julian whispered, defeated. I know. That is why you will work to pay me back. You will get an honest job, no tricks, no lies, and you will pay every penny. I turned toward the door. Robert unlocked it. Wait. Olivia's voice stopped me. She was standing, shaking, with tears running down her face. Mom, please, don't leave like this. I stopped but didn't turn around immediately. Wait. You are right. You are right about everything. Her voice broke. I was a horrible daughter. I was ashamed of you. I let Julian insult you. I hid you at my own wedding as if you were a stranger. And all because I wanted to fit into a world that isn't even real. Finally, I turned to look at her. She was destroyed, makeup running, expensive dress wrinkled, her entire perfect facade crumbled. You worked your whole life to give me everything, Olivia continued. You broke your back on the farm so I could study. You sold your land so I could have a house. You spent your savings so I could have the wedding of my dreams. And I paid you back with shame and contempt. She knelt in front of me, literally got on her knees. I don't deserve your forgiveness. I don't deserve your money. I don't deserve to be your daughter. But I beg you, Mom, give me a chance to show you I can change, that I can be the daughter you deserve. I looked at Julian. He was crying too, but his tears were different. They were tears of a man who had lost everything, who had been exposed in front of his parents, in front of his wife, in front of his mistress. He was no longer the arrogant man from the wedding. He was a shattered fraud. Julian, I said with a steady voice, you have 15 days to get out of my house. You can take your clothes and personal items, nothing else. The furniture stays, everything else stays, and you have 30 days to present me with a payment plan for your debt. If you don't, I sue and press charges for fraud. Yes, ma'am, he whispered. He didn't call me old hag anymore. There was no disdain in his voice, only defeat. I turned to Jessica, who was still rocking the crying baby. You were also a victim of this man. If you need legal help to establish paternity and get child support, my lawyer can guide you. Jessica nodded through tears. Thank you. I looked at Richard and Catherine Sterling. Your son is a liar and a con artist. You will decide whether to support him or not, but if you try to interfere in my business or threaten me in any way, I have enough evidence to destroy your entire family's reputation. Mr. Sterling nodded slowly. For the first time since I met him, I saw him speechless, humiliated. Finally, I looked at Olivia, still kneeling in front of me. I gave you 30 days to decide your future. Use that time wisely. If you really want to show me you changed, start by getting out of that luxury house you could never afford. Get a modest apartment, work honestly, live within your means. And when you have done that, when you have lived like I lived for years, then we will talk. I will, Olivia said. I will do everything you ask. Don't do it for me. Do it for yourself. Because until you understand the value of work, the value of sacrifice, the value of dignity over money, you will never truly be free. I walked out of that conference room with my head held high. Jack was waiting for me outside. He offered me his arm, and we walked together to the car. How do you feel? He asked me. Tired, I answered honestly. But at peace? The following days were a whirlwind. Julian vacated the house in 10 days, not 15. He took only his clothes, as I had ordered. Julian's parents disinherited him publicly. His name was ruined in the social circles where he used to brag. Jessica filed a paternity suit. DNA tests confirmed Julian was the father. The judge ordered child support of $2,000 a month. Money Julian didn't have, so he had to get a real job for the first time in years. He ended up working as a salesman at an appliance store. Humiliating for someone who believed he was superior to everyone. Olivia divorced Julian exactly 20 days after the meeting. She didn't fight for anything. She didn't ask for money. She simply signed the papers and left. She moved into a small one-bedroom apartment. It cost $600 a month, exactly what she could afford with her salary. She sold her luxury car and bought a used one. She sold her designer bags, her expensive jewelry, the entire fake life she had built. For 2 months she didn't contact me. I didn't look for her either. I had put the ball in her court. She had to take the next step. Finally, on a Sunday afternoon, she knocked on the door of my farmhouse. She came by bus, just like I used to travel. She was wearing simple clothes, no excessive makeup, no jewelry. Hi, Mom, she said simply. Hi, Olivia. Can I come in? I let her in. I made coffee. We sat in my small kitchen, the same kitchen where she grew up, where I made thousands of meals while working the fields. I have been working, she told me. Working honestly, 40 hours a week. I pay my rent. I buy my food. I don't spend on luxuries. For the first time in years, I understand how you lived your whole life. And how does it feel? Hard, exhausting, but also liberating. I don't have to fake it anymore. I don't have to pretend to be someone I'm not. We drank coffee in silence for a moment. Mom, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know what I did was unforgivable, but I want you to know that I finally understand. I understand your sacrifice. I understand your love. And I understand that money should never have been more important than our relationship. And what are you going to do now? I asked her. I am going to keep working. I am going to pay my debts. I am going to rebuild my life, but this time honestly. And if you allow me, I want to be your daughter again, Not for the money, not for the inheritance. Just because I miss you. Because you are my mom, and I was a fool not to value you. I looked at this woman in front of me. She was no longer the arrogant bride from the wedding. She was no longer the ashamed daughter who hid me. She was just Olivia, my little girl, humble, broken, but finally real. The road back will be long, I told her. I can't forgive everything overnight. I need to see that the change is real, not temporary. I understand. I will be here as long as it takes, and she kept her word. For the next 6 months, Olivia came every Sunday. She helped me in the house. We worked together in the small garden. We cooked, we talked. Slowly, very slowly, we rebuilt what had been broken. A year after the wedding, Olivia met a man. Robert, coincidentally, a school teacher who earned a modest salary, but who treated her with genuine respect, who admired her work, her transformation, her humility. When she introduced him to me, I didn't see a luxury car. I didn't see an expensive suit. I saw an honest man who looked at my daughter with real love. Does your mom know about your past? I asked him directly. She knows everything, Robert the teacher replied. And she loves Olivia for who she is now, not for who she was before. 2 years later, they got married. It was a small ceremony at the town church, 20 guests, a simple dress that cost $200, a homemade cake that Olivia and I baked together. And this time, I sat in the front row. This time, my daughter introduced me with pride. This time, when she said her vows, she looked me in the eye and said, "Thanks to my mother, who taught me that real love isn't measured in dollars, but in sacrifice." I cried that day. But they were tears of joy. As for Julian, the last I heard is that he is still working at that store, slowly paying off his debts, seeing his son every 2 weeks under supervision. His life of luxury and lies ended forever. And I, the poor country bumpkin, the old farm lady, learned something valuable. Sometimes the best gift you can give someone isn't your money, but the opportunity to fall low enough to find themselves. They thought I was a stupid old woman from the sticks. They didn't know this country bumpkin had built an empire of dignity while they were only building castles of lies. And when it all came crashing down, it became clear who really held the power. Power isn't in luxury houses or expensive weddings. Power is in knowing your worth and never letting it go, no matter how much they try to look down on you.